and let's call this one bevel, and let's see, we need to increase the height of the specular a lot for the bevel and keep the same width as for the main material, and this is going to be applied only on the bevels of our logo. Let's apply the materials. Let's select the bevel and apply it to the D, and in the selection type R1 and just copy and paste the material for all the objects, and just take the main and put it here on top. Let's zoom, and maybe we need to decrease this just so we can freely move in our viewport before we start rendering the object, because the mesh is really dense and this slows us down. Let's create a new white just to see if it works as expected, and you can see the result. We have some really nice specular highlights on the bevels. So let's delete this one and let's go to the modifiers and drop in bend deformer and open the D and drop the bend deformer here, and let's turn off the C and the title for now, and let's take the bend deformer and put it below the D spline. This is a really cool new feature in Cinema 4D R15 which I really like about the deformers that have a bounding box. If you select the deformer and hit this button here, fit to parent, it automatically fit the bend deformer bounding box to the size of the parent, and now if we try to bend, you can see the result. It saves a lot of time and it's pretty cool new feature, but we need to rotate the deformer a bit, so we need to set it to -90 degrees and check the rotation. Basically you have to play with the deformer and see how it works and how you need to rotate it, and I already did this, so I know the settings. I'm going just to rotate the deformer and hit again fit to parent, and it fits to the parent again. Now let's modify a bit the bend. Let's select it and go to object and click keep y-axis length, because if we bend this, you can see the result. It's deforming the shape a bit, and if we click it, this fixes it. And let's go to the coordinates for the bend, and we want to offset it a bit because we want to bend only this front part here. And now if I increase this a lot and maybe increase the size, you can see how it deforms the object, and if we click this, it fixes it. So let's increase the size to 215 and 360 and 410, and now we are going to create our animation. Let's set this to 0, or actually let's bend it a bit and hit R for the rotation and just offset it like 20 degrees to create the animation. And let's go to the first frame of our composition, or actually not the first, but we need to increase this to 400 frames before we proceed. I forgot to do that at the beginning. And let's go to frame 100 and set a keyframe for the strength at 0%. And now let's move to frame 280 and let's set this to -370 and set a keyframe. So that's our animation. you can see it in real time. And if I create a render, we might get some errors here, and I'm going to increase the density of the mesh later on. But before that, let's jump into the render settings and hit Ctrl B, and let's set the size of our project to 1280 by 720 and just close it. Now let's start adding some whites into the scene. Let's turn on again the rest of the objects, and let's add just a simple omni white. This is going to be our first white, so let's move it here. Let's go to the white properties, and we want sort of a white blue color. Let's try to eyeball it to the first one I used, so something like that I guess is okay. So that's basically something similar to the first color I used, and let's rename the white to specular 1, and we want to turn off the diffuse for this white, and we want to leave only the specular, and basically that's it. Increase the intensity to 200%, and you can see the result this white is creating. And we are going to use a combination of different whites and environment HDR image to give some nice reflections to the logo. So for this first white, I'm going to position it at the bottom here, and maybe set it here just to white the letters from the bottom, and you can see how they look like so far. And now let's create a copy of the white, and let's rename it to specular 2, and just position it like so to the side, and maybe move it up and backwards to white the letters from the back side here, to give some nice specular here on the logo. And maybe we can move this one like so into the back, and basically you have to tweak and try some different positioning of the whites until you get the result you like. So let's create a new copy of the white, and let's position it again to the top this time, something like that, and maybe push it forward like so, to create a specular highlight here on the top side of the logo. As you can see, this specular highlight. Let's create another copy, and let's position it here. So I want a nice specular highlight right here, and on this copy we are going to reduce the intensity to 150%, and let's go to the coordinates again and move it closer to our subject like so, and this is the result as you can see. And basically that's it. We don't need to create any more whites. We have our bending animation. So let's go to the content browser, and I'm going to use the Grayscale Gorilla HDR Studio Pack, and I'm going to drop down the rig into the project, and I'm going to use